Come on! Come on, motherfucker!
I kinda need a moment before we begin this one. This is my decade. I started reviewing cartoons in 2013, and here we are 7 years later, and I'm basically looking back on my entire career. And for better or worse, it's because of these shows that I have my YouTube account, which is the best thing that ever happened to me. So no matter what I say to any of these shows, I do have to be at least a little bit thankful with each and every one of them on the list. Each of them is another little memory, and they were a part of the path to where I am today. So, what did we do this decade? I think the better question is, what didn't we do this decade? The 2010s doesn't have much of a consensus at all, because it has both the best cartoons ever made and the worst cartoons ever made. Streaming and the internet let shows get away from things like regulations and the old standards and practices that held a lot of creativity back. Of course, this means we got other shows that the censors probably would've and should've gotten to, like The Problem Solvers or Big Mouth or Neo Yokio. Alright, let's walk down memory lane and see the shits that we took in the 2010s.
So what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
So, remember the first one of these countdown lists, the top 10 worst cartoons of the 2000s? On that list, I put on what I thought was a controversial choice, Drawn Together. I thought that it was a terrible show, but I understood that a lot of people liked it, and I opened it up with a bunch of I'm sorries. Well, this time around, I'm not—
Shut up and get to the point!
Let's talk about Lauren Faust's DC Superhero Girls. Friendship is Magic was obviously a big show in my life, and it's probably gonna make the best list of the 2010s whenever I get around to it. But not every single episode of that show was fantastic, and I never pretended that it was. One of the worst episodes of that show that comes to mind is Dragon Quest. It was an episode that meant to showcase that it was okay for boys to do girly things, using a metaphor. Boys were the dragons, and girls were the ponies. Then, of course, it had a line like this.
I don't act like other dragons?
Oh, not even close.
But why would you want to, Spike?
Now, imagine, if you will, that we stripped away the metaphor. You're not like other boys, but why would you want to be? You're not like other girls, but why would you want to be? You're not like other black people, but why would you want to be? This could be argued as me looking too deep into the episode. A supervillain starts attacking a male superhero. His friend, a female superhero, constantly wants to know what he did to justify her anger. You know, because victim blaming is one of the most feminist messages out there. And then when he explains that he broke up with her via text, she goes mental and starts attacking him. Like, on the surface level, that's not funny. Personally, I don't hate feminism, but shows like this don't help with that. This is the kind of stuff that feminism gets stereotyped as, making guys look like idiots to push up their female characters. And of course, empowerment means being an asshole and being completely stoic. So many of the episodes of the show are like this. And if this entry gets you upset with my list, you're not gonna like much of the rest of it, because this is a good sum up of one of the worst problems with media in the 2010s. Like I said, every single writer or artist felt obligated to have an opinion on whatever issue. Social justice, feminism, gun control. And the problem is that most of them had no clue what they were doing. But what gets me with this show is the writing. It's bad. Like, this show seems to be written for preschoolers. Within the first 30 seconds of each episode, you will know what the moral is. It seriously feels like it was aimed at a younger audience than Friendship is Magic, which kind of backfires on the feminist aspect of the show. That's another thing that I've noticed about activists. In one episode, Diana, Wonder Woman, fails at doing everything because she's in love with a boy. This episode outright and literally states that Wonder Woman is literally a symbol of female empowerment. And this is the episode they have her completely inept over a boy with. This is some kind of chalk zone, only bad ideas get erased shit. And then 4 of our superheroes think that the best solution to this is to try and outright kill Diana's crush, because that's what a good role model will do. It's episodes like this that make the show worse than Teen Titans Go.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
When Go made an episode like Boys vs. Girls, it was mocking shows like this. Shows that tried to proclaim equality, but in the end said that one side was better than the other, while making everyone completely unlikable. Also, we see Diana fail each and every single thing before they all decide to do something about this, problem. That's how each episode of the show goes. Every single episode has a plot that's only worth 3 minutes, that they stretch out as much as possible. But seriously, if there's any reason to hate this show, it's because each episode title starts with a hashtag. And if there's anything that can get you to appear as a piece of the worst parts of the 2010s culture, it's probably that.
We could make the plaza safe for all, so what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
The singular identity of the 2010s is definitely how experimental it was. Animation in the 2010s came up with a lot of unique and interesting ideas that you wouldn't be able to find in any other decade.
You said that already.
This is the decade where cartoons got weird, and sometimes they got weird by being incredibly down to earth.
You said that already.
We have BoJack Horseman, a show about a famous celebrity who used to be on television, and it went deep into the reality of how fame can screw a person up. Adventure Time, a silly show full of random humor, has metaphors for Alzheimer's, and seems to take place after a major war.
There you are! Good boy!
Bet you forgot about this one. It came out in 2014, and it lasted until 2019. That's over half a decade of this demon dog. People really like this show, and for the love of God, I cannot figure out why. Mr. Pickles is a parody of a kids series, The Story of Lassie. Adults perverting kid stories is not a new thing in animation. In fact, there's going to be one further down this list. But seriously, animation has been doing this since the 70s, at least with the film Once Upon a Girl, in which Mother Goose told about the true stories of the fairy tales, which all happen to be pornographic. Even more recently, we've had Where the Dead Go to Die, which is also about a cute dog committing unspeakable acts of horror. I've long since given up talking about shows like Mr. Pickles, because there isn't much you can say about them. Seriously, parents, don't let your kids watch things like Mega Babies, or one day they'll make something like Mr. Pickles. That kind of stuff scars you for life. That's why we should care about what our kids watch. Another thing that sets Mr. Pickles apart from its ilk is the actual quality of the animation is terrible. There's something about King Star King. Even with all of its gore and gross out, it looks like a lot of talent actually went into drawing and animating it. It understood the idea of appeal. Appeal is a very You know what's worse than mindlessly trying to shock your audience? How about mindlessly trying to shock your audience and being bad at it? Brickleberry's first joke is showing a bunch of animals having sex, but the Family Guy style of animation makes all of them look like fucking blow-up dolls. This came out in the 2010s when adult cartoons were at their lowest point in animation history. Comedy Central and Fox were and Brickleberry is just the worst of them all. And to boot, it even has the worst inspiration. Back in the day, like right when the Cleveland Show came out, College Humor had a bit on Seth MacFarlane shows, basically claiming how they were all the same. You got a stupid man, beautiful woman, well, beautiful is the wrong word considering the quality of the animation within these shows, and of course you need to have your talking animals. Seth MacFarlane has nothing to do with the show, but that's the only surprising thing about Brickleberry. When you've seen these shows giving drive-by opinions that no one wants to hear passing as social commentary. I mean, the show was made by Daniel Tosh, and his style of comedy does really get old really quickly. What do I even say about a show like Brickleberry?
We could make the plaza safe for all, so what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
On some level, I can forgive assaulting my eyes like Mr. Pickles did, but when you assault my ears like this show did, you're on my permanent shit list. I don't even know what to say about Bunsen as a Beast. There's so little to it. I understand that Butch Hartman has kind of become a big target of the decade. Butch has done plenty of things that deserve ire and my disrespect.
So I look at people that critique as weak. Weak rhymes with critique. So, you know, if you're going to critique like, hey, this is never going to work or whatever, then I just say, you know what, let's see you try it, and then we'll see how you do.
Most infamously is the whole Oaxis debacle. We're still waiting on that streaming service, or anything besides a template webpage and asking for more money. Oh yeah, and then there's the whole critique rhymes with weak phrase he came up with, and his talking down of negativity. To any future creatives, I beg of you, do not listen to Butch Hartman. If you don't accept critique, you end up like him, pushing away more and more people who made you what you are, and creating worse and worse products.
We could make the plaza safe for all, so what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
Fake news. Fake news. Fake weather.
Presenting Our Cartoon President. There is a lot that I could say about this show. I could say that it's an incredibly bad idea, borderline dangerous, to make a show this politically charged when our times are this divided and polarized, to the point that people rioted after the 2016 election. This show has tapped into some of the freshest jokes imaginable. I mean, it's gonna be like redefining the game of comedy. So here's one of the main jokes. Have you heard that Trump is orange? Wait, what? You actually have heard that joke. Many times, in fact. Okay, have you heard that Trump has small hands? Oh, you've heard that joke over 1,000,000 times. Okay. Have you heard that he's fat, stupid, and racist? Oh, that's not good. You've heard those jokes over 1,000,000,000 times? Much of what I don't like about this show has to do with the problem with Trump jokes in general. And yes, Trump jokes have a problem other than just being overdone. It's not just that Trump jokes are bad, it's that they are this black hole of comedy. The second that he ran for office, he killed the concept of comedy entirely. It's been dead since then, and I don't think it's ever gonna recover. Trump jokes are so bad on concept that I'm fairly sure that Trump jokes and the people who tell them, like Stephen Colbert, are actually a big reason he got elected. They are so unfunny. I am sure that people go out and vote for Trump just to spite these people.
This is fucking annoying. I don't know why you people are watching this shit anymore. The point has been made. You've seen all you need to see. Move on.
And speaking of a cartoon, the animation of this is just god-awful. This is some of the lowest quality that I have ever seen. I heard that the show needed to be storyboarded and animated quickly, because it needs to keep up with current events. But then you notice how South Park is able to actually keep up with current events so well that they were able to completely change one of their episodes in a 24-hour time span. Yes, I get the joke. Our current president and our current political climate is a cartoon show. All wacky and ridiculous, even though cartoons in the 2010s have gotten fairly serious.
So what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
Well, I can't wait till I get old and my memories start to unfold about high school USA.
So for the previous lists, I had a bit of a rule. Every single cartoon needed to have at least 13 episodes. That's generally considered a full season. And while shows like Adult Party Cartoon and Alan Gregory were terrible, some of the worst out there, they were mercy killed early. High School USA is legitimately one of the worst pieces of media that I've ever had to experience. In terms of badly trying to be shocking, this show is absolutely the worst. When Brickleberry pours AIDS into soup or something, it's not funny, it's just whatever. But the types of jokes that this show tells are just really not cool. These kind of jokes would be tasteless at the best of times, but in the 2010s, when social tensions have gotten worse and worse, this is the equivalent of playing with matches in a room full of dynamite. I'm not offended by this show personally. It tackles all the typical adult cartoon stuff. Sex changes, drugs, and it does each and every single one of them poorly. So poorly that one of its 12 episodes got banned. This is the kind of show that wanted to do an episode on abortion. This kind of show. And if you're looking at this, you might see that it looks familiar. Doesn't this kind of look like Archie? the guy who made Moral Oral made this. Remember that show? It had an episode that went into the lives of women who were sexually assaulted, and it dealt with that issue with a lot of respect. And as such, it was one of the most chilling pieces of animation that I had ever seen. How do you go from that to this? Look, I could go on with this one. I'm just gonna cut to the chase on this one. The Powerpuff Girls 2016 is one of the few shows out there that makes me feel legitimately unclean. A lot of shows I've reviewed in the past, I've been too angry, getting shouty and ranty for no good reason. However, every so often, there's a show that I feel that I should have been much harsher on, and the Powerpuff Girls reboot is one of the most prime examples in my mind, so please excuse me if I get a little bit ranty in this segment. It had 6-year-old girls twerking. They brought Allegro back in another episode, and then had these 6-year-old girls twerk again. We had an adult princess giving a prolonged kiss on the mouth to Buttercup, once again a child. Then we had the infamous Jared Shapiro incident. You removed Miss Keene's breasts, and then you sent away Miss Bellum because hers were too big. Oh my god, the professor. Why? Why is he like this? Why is he the stupidest character I've ever seen? Turning down the original voice actresses for the Powerpuff Girls. And then there was that whole incident with Donnie. This show is disgusting. I've said that before, but I have to keep saying, this show feels very much like intentional sabotage. It feels very much like the people behind the show hated the Powerpuff Girls and just wanted to destroy it by any means necessary.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks.
If you have photosensitive epilepsy, then you're gonna have to keep your eyes shut for this one.
We are the problem solvers.
End this brawl.
Everything okay in here, sweetie?
Get the hell out, Shannon! Get out!
You guys knew that this one was coming. And no, I'm not doing the television things again because I don't give a crap. This show does not deserve that much effort. A lot of people love this show. It even had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is confusing to me. Like, even if you like this show, it's not worth 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now let me get something out of the way really quick. I'm both a sex-repulsed asexual, which means that sexual content in general gives me the heebie-jeebies, but I'm also an American, and we have a culture that's kinda got a stick up our butt about sexuality in general. So that does affect some of my biases towards not liking this show. Drawings do count as child pornography in the United States if they resemble actual identifiable people. So now you know why each and every single character looks like a fish or a frog, because if they didn't, the creators of the show would go to jail. This show makes me incredibly uncomfortable in ways that most others do not. And it's not entirely because I have my own personal problems. The show takes a lot of influence from Family Guy, which is problem number 1. If this list itself is anything to go on, that's a mistake in and of itself. But they basically go on in discussion about penises or ejaculation for like minutes at a time. It also has a lot of the drive-by opinions on current events or pop culture that Family Guy is known for as well, and it's bad at it. The writing of the show is terrible, and that's a problem. When you do this kind of show, talking about this kind of subject matter, you don't just need good writing, you need the best writing. For this show to work, it needs to be the best written thing that I've ever seen. Topics like puberty and periods and questioning your sexuality in terms of writing, they're like surgery, and this show's tool of choice is a baseball bat. Last time around, I watched one episode and I decided the show wasn't for me. This time around, I did stick around for multiple episodes, and it was some of the most grueling experience that I've ever had doing this review thing.
So what do you say? Let's end this brawl!
Let's start with Breadwinners. Hey, remember when I said that this was the worst cartoon that I've ever seen? Sanjay and Craig. It's bad. It's gross. That one episode is literally adult party cartoon bad. The Adventures of Kid Danger. Monsters vs. Aliens. Neo Yokio. Hey, did you guys know that they animated Jaden Smith's Twitter account? Fleabag Monkey Face. Teen Titans Go. This is actually not a dishonorable mention on this list. It's not even bad enough to be considered on a list like this. I think the original Teen Titans Go hate is kind of getting too much hate now. The Magic School Bus rides again. So let's talk about Generation Z. This show never came out. Border Town. Legend of Chamberlain Heights. I remember you advertising on my channel. I don't mind networks advertising their cartoons on my channel. It's probably the best place for them to advertise. Bless the Hearts. And finally, Alan Gregory. Now, let's talk about another show that I'm never going to forget.
So I plead with you, my plaza folks, please turn in all of your remotes. We could make the plaza safe for all. So what do you say? Let's end this brawl.
Family Guy, Family Guy, Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane, Seth MacFarlane, Seth MacFarlane, Seth MacFarlane, Family Guy, 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 Family Guy. It seems today that all you see
is violence in movies and sex on TV.
That guy sucked.
Okay, so the first question is obvious. Does this even count? Look, you only get one Sea or Seashell party before you go on my permanent shit list. And this show gave me 2 of them! Back to back! Every problem that I've had with just about every other show on this list, on any list, is in this show, bright and clear. I count the reasons that I hate the show, but they don't make numbers that high. You know how I made an 8-part documentary in 2019? Well, I could make a trilogy of those on all my problems with just one season of Family Guy, and that's not an exaggeration. I'm trying to puzzle how not to do that here, and to keep this entry brief. But in every other entry, on every other worst list I've made, I can understand why someone somewhere watched that show. People really like this show, and for the love of God, I cannot figure out why. A lot of people love this show. It even had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is confusing to me. There is only one emotion that I get from Family Guy, and that is contempt. No joke, in every single episode that I've reviewed, I cut off the cutaways. And sometimes the actual episodes, what you come in to watch, did not clock in at 11 minutes. That is pathetic. Then there was the Brian fiasco. He was killed off for really reals, taking a character that people do care for and killing him off for a marketing stunt. It's just a sick joke to prank people. I've talked about how much I hate Brian. There's an episode where Brian gives Stewie herpes for no reason. They've taken each and every joke that they've ever told and repeated it ad nauseum. You get the same exact things in each and every single episode. Irony! And then there are episodes like Screams of Silence. Let me calm down right now. If I had to say something to Seth MacFarlane himself, I have to say this. Please stop. Stop trying to be funny. You are not funny. You're not a comedian. I know that you want to entertain people and make them laugh, and that is definitely admirable. I've also heard that you do suffer from depression, so maybe you think that trying to be funny is all that you have, but you are not an untalented guy. You may have signs of doubt, but try something new for once. And I don't mean try something that isn't a cartoon. Please try something that's not a comedy. Write something dramatic for once. Or hell, get out of the writing business altogether and become a singer. Because if there's one thing that you're good at, is singing. But keep on this path, and I don't see it panning out in any positive way whatsoever. I'm Mr. Enter saying, I hope none of this crap survives into the 2020s, even though like half of these shows are still airing. I eagerly await the new flavors of shit that we have to deal with in the upcoming decade. And who knows, maybe someday I'll still be around on YouTube to make the top 10 worst cartoons of the 2020s.